Welcome, yogis. I'm in this position to welcome you, and also because it's an important shape that we'll be reconnecting with in our practice. This shape alone has been shown to actually shift mood. That there's something about the firmness of the stance, these are my words, I'm not sure this is how the scientists who studied it put it, that reaching out and activity through the limbs, rising up through the crown, the open-heartedness, certainly the open breath capacity versus the shouldered slumped, the protected heart, and so on. So this alone, this statement with the body, speaks so much to our mind and heart states. And we know that, of course, it works the other way too, right? That what we're feeling and thinking often will impact our body with maybe the shrugged shoulders or the tight stomach or whatever. So it's just so important to remember that that union, that relationship is always happening, whether we realize it or not. And it's really powerful when we become conscious of that and we take ownership of that, stewardship of that, and decide to work with it to help us just feel happier, healthier on all levels. Thinking a lot this week about resiliency. And we've heard that word a lot in recent last couple of months. But I think it's always an issue. The question is really, how well prepared is your system, I'm kind of meaning body, mind, spirit, to handle a major stressor, a loss, a major fear, and so on. And last week's classes, we touched on this also, the importance of fear and worries and how do we create spaciousness from those. And it's not a quick and done topic, so I'm kind of continuing with that a little bit this week through the lens of resiliency. And so I like to think about, of course, how are we emotionally and mentally resilient, and then also how are we physically resilient. And of course they, like I said, communicate back and forth and they work beautifully as metaphors. So when our tissues are stuck and tight, we're at greater risk of injury, right? We know this, and this is why it's so important. You know, if you've got scar tissue somewhere, adhesions in your fascia connected to the muscles, for example, to try and work them out, whether it's through massage, through getting physical training and PT. And so I wanted to bring up again as a reminder some of our great tools that we have access to at home. And so even when we can't be getting some of those services that might be helping us, we can very thoughtfully ask, where am I tight, stiff, contracted, maybe even, again, sticky. I think of some of tissues being sticky or crispy, and therefore at risk of injury. So a tennis ball is just, to me, one of the greatest gifts. I don't play tennis, but I love tennis balls. For foot rolling, the tennis ball is wonderful, and I'm not going to go into depth today, but I'm wanting to remind you to use your tools, and we'll do a breakdown session at some point. But also golf ball. If you want to hit points more intensely, if you're kind of into that, you like that kind of deep massage, you might enjoy a golf ball. And again, you can be doing rolling and movement and also holding and pressure. And I find that combination really powerful. Same too with on the back body. So using a wall, and it helps to have your tennis ball on a sock so that you can kind of hold on to it and not have it roll away on you, and you can manipulate how high. But you might always take an athletic stance, and you might roll up and down with the ball by moving your body up and down the wall. And you can also take the ball, in essence, from side to side by taking your body side to side. So from the spine out kind of in under the shoulder blade. It's so fun doing this in class together because I always get to hear the oohs and the ah and the oh my God, and why am I not doing this more often? So the tennis ball, wonderful for that. And also want to remind everyone of the value of these TheraBands. This is a really springy, pretty low intensity one. So especially if you've already got kind of an injury that you don't want to aggravate, you might start lighter. But we also have access to thicker ones, and this is an actual TheraBand brand. So if you've gotten kind of the lighter weight ones like I was just showing you from a physical therapist and you were wishing, yeah, I kind of want more resistance because I want to really work through either some tension or also building strength without having a weight room or a gym. These are amazing. And one of my favorites is overhead and pulling down. One of my other favorites is looping onto a doorknob. I don't know if you can see this whole thing, but you'll see me. It's my newel post over there. And drawing back, getting that powerful pulling motion and contraction of all those muscles between and around the blades. It ends up feeling like a good massage even though you're working those tissues, because that working is what's creating lubrication and freedom. I often think of the Tin Man, you know, and after doing yoga, I often say, oh, finally, I feel like somebody finally oiled the Tin Man in me. So lots of ways that we can try and work towards resiliency in our bodies. And we're going to do that in a moment in a physical practice. But I also want to bring attention to what does it mean to be, say, contracted, crispy, sticky in a mental or emotional way? What does that look like? What are the things that cause it? And so I've got a couple little tidbits for you. And one is to just think about spaciousness versus fullness. And if we have a lot of worries, fears, and so on, and we're not moving them through, digesting them, replacing them perhaps with spaciousness, then we're going to feel just very full of a lot of kind of stressful stuff. And we might feel like we don't have as much room for joy. There's a great quote by Thomas Merton that says, God cannot fill a heart and mind that's already full. And I think that's beautiful. So how do we create that spaciousness? Well, one is really noticing the thoughts that kind of create these afflicted states, you know, sort of judgment and fear, aversion, loathing, all kinds of stuff that all of them add up to kind of separation, if you will. Separation often from our true nature, our wholest nature, which should always incorporate love and trust and faith. I'm not saying that's all we live in, but that we need that to be present and we can't let this other stuff consume all the space. It also often creates separation from others. If we are in those thought forms too long and without witnessing, wow, this is really intense. I'm having all these intense feelings and thoughts, and what are they creating in my body? So we can kind of take ownership of the process and hopefully make great choices about how to move that stuff. Otherwise, we do just become fuller, more contracted, and less available for the goodness that I think I can say confidently we are all seeking. So I miss getting to have these conversations in person, but I'm grateful to get to have you show up for your mat and for us to do it this way. And it's been really fun to hear feedback from people, everything from a kind of philosophical or Dharma talk like we're having now being useful, to I got to hear about some sore muscles from the get your gardening or your body gardening ready, and even last week's classes that were pretty heavy in the butt, legs, and hips. I was feeling them. So I'm going to not do anything quite so repetitive with this part of the body today, but really get into the whole body and ask you if you find a place that feels really contracted, sticky, itchy, again, whatever word makes sense to you, to pause and just really stay present with that part. You can always come back to this practice again and do it another day and not feel like you're missing out on something. But I'm just providing a framework to hopefully get you to be in your body and get kind of drawn in to this landscape and to be more in a state of noticing and intimacy with what's really going on in there. So again, thank you so much for being here with me. It's really hard to express how important it is, how touched I am, and how connected I feel in spite of the distance. So thank you, everyone. Asking you to please find that stance that I was exhibiting. So you're going sideways on your mat. And you're not taking the widest straddle you possibly can. I really don't want any kind of stress on the ankles. I really want to just feel solid, grounded, safe, rooting and rising. And if you are somebody who has already identified that often these muscles in the quads at the fronts of the thighs don't click in, and that you tend to kind of get a little hunched. Really try kind of bending and pushing a few times just to get those activated, or take your touch there. And then when you're ready, shoulder head slide down, reaching out, enlivening the hands, the toes. I'm even gonna spread my shoulder head slide down. Turn the gaze inward. Turn the gaze up and in, looking behind the center of the forehead. And please join me in 3 sighing breaths. And please, in this moment, join me in a smile. Feel that energy. We know also that smiling affects our mind and emotion states, even if we're not in a great mood. If we can actually add that smile, sometimes it'll shift us upward a little bit. And you don't have to hold it forever to feel that. Just a nice, momentary, I'm grateful. I'm happy to be alive in this healthy body and to be here at the mat. Good. By now, your arms might be getting a little sore, so we're going to come into movement. So as you're ready, inhale and sweep up. Slow, deep, and wide, breathing only through the nose unless you're too stuffy. Exhaling, squatting down. You don't have to go far, so listen to your knees, otherwise you can go nice and deep and bring those arms down. Inhaling, sweeping out and up, rooting, reaching. Maybe you want to add a little back bend, pushing the hips forward. And exhaling, sliding those hips on down, kind of into an imaginary chair or a higher bar stool. Again. And over these next few breath rounds, please add your ujjayi, throat contraction, light connection of the tip of the tongue at the roof of the mouth. And most importantly now, begin to watch the breath and let it initiate motion. So letting the inhale be complete, asking, is there more? And then when the exhale comes, it's your time to move, asking, is there more? Find the pause, couple more. And you can have your eyes open, of course, for greater balance support. But if you don't need that, try tuning in really deeply with your inner seeing, eyes closed, feeling the breath, feeling the awakening in all these powerful muscles, and beginning to notice where you might be feeling hitches, sticky spots, and so on. Nice. One more. Inhaling up. Exhaling, prayer hands. Again, eyes closed if you don't need them open. And for a moment, I ask you to listen inward to your heartbeat, to your sense of what you know about yourself, body, mind, spirit already, and I'm asking you to just notice in this moment if anything I said in the Dharma talk lead in kind of touched you as like, oh, yeah. And I'd encourage you to consider just writing it down somewhere as kind of something to return to digest, to create more space for all the joy and goodness. And if you're already experiencing an abundant load of that in your life, great. Let yourself really sit with that feeling. What does it feel like if you are feeling safe and whole and well, and there's plenty of time, plenty of help, plenty of money? What does that feel like? And inviting you to take now a wider stance and inhale, sweep up just with the right arm and then over a little to the left. And then please come up straight, inhaling. We're going to pulse this way a few times. And I'm asking you to notice what's in this side body. We did a lot of work with it last week, strengthening it and lengthening it. And we talked a little about how important that side body is, physically, energetically. And one more. Let's find the other side. Inhale, sweep up through the left arm and come a little to the right. I usually turn my head down, my face down a little bit because it makes things easier on my neck. So of course, please amend these shapes in any way that make them just right for you, right? Then we're in yoga and integrity. And come on down. Nice. We're just going to do a little twisting. This does not have to be a big or kind of raucous movement. If you feel comfortable having your arms up in this kind of goalpost position, or we use it during goddess pose, great. I'm going to turn my toes out a little bit, and I want to really deepen my squat and feel sturdy and strong such that my knees aren't going to be doing the Elvis. So I'm just like, bam. And then I'm going to twist left and twist right. And if your back is already kind of sensitive, you're for sure going to want to keep this nice and slow, maybe even slower than what I started out with. If you feel ready to create more speed and range of motion, try matching your breath. Inhale left, exhale right. So like a slow bellows breath. And it's a great way again to get some stuff moving. Last few. You can maybe even let your head travel so you're seeing behind you. And slow it on down. Nice. We're going to head into our straddle forward fold. You might just go there directly, or you might be craving a root and reach, and then come on down. Always starting with knees bent so that we can check out what's happening in my back today, my hips. And then I'm going to start going side to side. Nice and slow. So I've got a chance to notice what's there and to also deepen the stretch. You know, in that first moment, you'll only get to a certain distance of what's available. As you hang out there, your body kind of goes, oh, okay, yeah. And as you breathe. So I'm going to ask you to spend another maybe half a dozen breaths at least playing with our side-to-side straddle. You might be working to reach one hand even further out away from the foot. So I've got my left hand reaching as far to the right away from my left foot as I can. Sometimes it feels really good while you're here to kind of twist and open a little bit. So I'm taking my other hand on the thigh, kind of rotating my chest towards the sky, right? Any of these things might feel good in your body. And of course, slow with breath and noticing you want your feet anchored the whole time. And of course, remember, you don't have to go all the way to the floor. You could be doing a lot of the same exploration and stretching with the hands on the thighs. Last breath here. And then please walk those feet in. Inhale, root and rise up. Exhaling, prayer hands. Take our hands around our neck in a little collar. And you're just going to rotate gently the head kind of around that collar. So I'm not gripping my hands or anything. I'm just providing, excuse me, a supportive base for the lower spine or lower part of the neck, so that that upper part, right where it connects the occipital ridge to the neck, it feels like it has the freedom to check out letting stuff go there. I'm trying not to hold on there because of the microphone. I don't want it to mess things up. But as you can, just take time to do little circles, and then also taking your head to one side and maybe even using the one hand to kind of press or create a little traction. And often these movements will clue us into all kinds of stuff that we didn't even know was in there. If you find some stuff where you're like, wow, that's really pulling, or that's really tender or intense, encouraging you to spend some time later, maybe in a little self-massage there, some investigation, and see if you can get some of those crispy tight spots to release. Also, when you're letting go, then let's do the same bit for our wrists. We ask a lot of them, especially I know a lot of people are doing yard work and so on this time of year. And reminder that anything you're feeling in your wrists is probably got something going on up here too, in the forearm, up by the elbow, and the tendons that help us grip. So I always like to pause. That area of my body gets tight and really like will hold the tension. So I like to pause and kind of just take my other hand and just sort of press and massage through there. You don't want to do a lot of deep, like digging into this tissue. So it's more, I've got my hand kind of in a little C shape, and I'm just sort of rubbing along there. And often when I'm rubbing my arms, if I go to my upper arm, often I'll feel inspired to move my head, and my neck will crack or clunk. So it's that reminder of all the connectedness of these tissues. And let's do a little love up for the feet, the ankles. And hopefully I'm inspiring you to get your tennis ball out later or the next day and really see what you can find there. It's one of those things that when people do it, they're like, why don't I do this more often? We're so funny that way. It's like we know the good things to do usually, and we need reminders, and we'll probably always need reminders. That's how I am. We're going to come down onto the floor on our back body to remember how to breathe into our abdomen. I'm going to take us into compression and expansion, but then also our 3-part breathing, Dirga Pranayama. We haven't visited that in a number of weeks. So when you are ready, please come on down to your back body. And let's begin with first just sinking. Hopefully you've got a nice level of alertness as well as relaxation from some of our movement and self-massage. And now I'm going to ask you to just give your weight to gravity, saying, I trust the earth and my yoga mat to hold me. Trusting this moment, this is your yoga. There is nothing that you have to accomplish here. There's nothing you have to get perfect ever. There's nothing really that you need to know. And really the only commitment is to be in this body, in this moment, in this breath, witnessing and helping energy shift and move through our breath. When you're ready, please join me in first a nice long inhale through the nose. Exhale, compression, belly to spine, anchoring the back into the floor, staying soft in the neck, emptying of the breath until there is no more, and soften, allowing yourself to be breathed. Is there more? Exhaling, compression. Inhaling, expansion. So ideally, please continue. When I'm getting those big inhales, my abdomen should be expanding towards the sky. And I would ask you to notice if you're someone for whom your belly doesn't move very much, even when you're getting the deepest breath you can. Because that's a great clue that there's constriction through here that is really harming us. It's not allowing us to breathe the way that we're designed to for our best resilient health and moods and all that. So sometimes it's the stress that people have been carrying. It can happen for a variety of reasons, but also after a while, we may just need to wake up those nerves and muscles to get them to contribute again. So if you notice that you're not getting breath in that area, always in our practice, take your hands there to enliven your awareness. And in a moment, we're still doing compression and expansion. I hope you're still on it. In a moment, when we move to three-part breathing, that touch can become really important. For now, keep using it wherever you've got it. And also, please add the awareness. Are you tightening areas that you don't need to, like your tongue? We know that the tongue sandwiched against the roof of the mouth indicates stress, and actually that just softening the tongue can reduce feelings of stress, worry, anger, you name it. Last one, engaging down, 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 asking, is there more? And as you release on your inhale, let's just sweep those arms overhead and get some nice organic stretching going here on our back bodies. It's different, of course, than when we're standing. Now we're not relying on anything to hold us up. So get organic here, rolling the ankles. You might kind of bend the knees and circle them too. You can rotate the feet in and out. And the same with the hands. And when I do rotations with my hands, that's often a time that I notice what's going on in my shoulders, and I get to notice tension patterns that need my attention. When you're complete there, please join me with your hands on your low belly, three-part breathing. I'm going to do each stage one at a time. If you feel like you're just ready to jump in and do them all three together, go for it. When you're ready, please gather and inhale. On the exhale, try to empty all your breath, but give particular attention to the muscles that are under your hands, right there between the hip bones and the pubic bone and the belly button, squeezing and emptying, emptying. On the inhale, let the breath come in, but particularly invite it to expand in under your hands. So you might even kind of press your abdomen into your touch. And again, exhaling, compression, down, 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 to empty that lower abdomen. This is the first stage of our three-part breath, or Kapalabhati. And let's do one more. You'll feel breath in other areas too. You're just intending to maximize the result under your hands. Okay. We're going to move our hands up the diaphragmatic breath, and your hands are either on the front of the body, right up tight under the breast area, so your fingers kind of come together between the ribs, or right out on the outside of the ribs. And we haven't done this for probably a good 6 weeks now, so that's why I'm kind of revisiting the how-to. And I just invite you, as we're going, to try and notice which section is more difficult for you, if any, and if that's changed at all since you started practicing Kapalabhati. So on your next exhale, empty, empty, specifically emphasizing the area under your touch, squeezing the ribs in and down. And on the inhale, expanding, filling that space, pressing the ribs out into the hands if you can. Is there more? Exhaling, emptying. Again, much like we do in compression, it's just that attention to getting out the last kind of 10 to 30% of your exhale. And notice if you're tightening areas that you don't need to, like your tongue or your eyebrows. Maybe add a smile even while you're doing this powerful abdominal work. And then we'll take the hands up to the clavicle, fingertips at the base of the throat. Take a nice long inhale, exhaling, empty completely, and see if you can kind of press your chest down with your hands a little bit. Emptying, 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 emptying. And then on the inhale, invite the area beneath the hands to lift and expand. And again, continue. And what you'll notice perhaps is that this third stage is much less dramatic physical movement, and that really you don't get the complete sensation of lift and filling in this area until the very end of the inhale. And that's because it's the end of the inhale that fills the upper lobe of the lungs, right? The first part of the inhale fills the lower lobe of the lungs. That's why that belly should be displaced out there with the organs having to move. And then it moves up through the lungs into that upper lobe. So these last couple, please notice if you think you're shrugging or what have you. Hopefully by practicing this laying down, you're less likely to do that. But if you ask a lot of people, if they're standing or sitting, and you ask them to take a deep breath, a lot of people will simply shrug and lift their shoulders and chest, trying to create space for breath. And unfortunately, that just enhances the kind of nervous system experience of fight or flight instead of ease and bliss and goodness. So we need to learn how to breathe into our bellies if we aren't already, and all of us can always intensify our capacity. If your low back ever feels uncomfortable just being flat, remember you can bend the knees like this. Let's string this together. So nice long inhale. Exhale, think about emptying all of these areas, low belly, rib cage, chest. Is there more? If you can whisper, there's still breath in there. When it's gone, try to invite the inhale into the low belly, then rising into the diaphragm, then rising into the chest, asking, is there more? Continue. A few more like this, please. Know that the exhale just happens naturally in whatever order. You're not trying to articulate that in any particular way. And if you've gotten pretty good at this, you're getting movement in all three areas, then you might try a kind of fun little game just to sort of test it out. Focus only on the emptying and squeezing in the exhale, and then relax and observe what flow does your breath take? Does it take that three-part path without you trying to make it do so? Do you end up feeling sensation in each of these areas? Is one area harder for you than another? And this is a really important part of our clue trail, I like to call it, to helping us know, really how to change how we breathe, which changes everything. It changes our immune system, our nervous system, our mood, how fast we heal. It's really profound. When that last one is done, please go ahead and bring your feet underneath the hips, or underneath the knees rather. We're going to raise our hips in bridge pose. So working your shoulders beneath you, whatever arm alignment you like, arms tucked close to the body. Inhale, slow, deep, and wide. Exhale, press the hips up. We're going to come down again, inhaling, come down as slowly as you can. Fulfill the inhale. Don't cut it short to get to the next move, right? Remember the breath initiating motion. Next time, exhaling, press up. Is there more? Inhaling, descending. We know that this slow descent is really good for waking up that back body. And like I said, we're not going to do anything too intense with those muscles today, but this action of tightening, shortening, and strengthening them in this movement is really something ideally we should do every day so that we stay in more balance. Next time we're up, invitation for leg extensions. I know, you guessed. Make sure your feet aren't too far apart. I like having my hands on the hips for kind of a measuring awareness tool. And begin moving slowly back and forth, extending one leg at a time. Remember, it's as if you're walking on the wall in front of you. You don't want to be taking the leg up to the sky. It's just right, straight ahead, thigh basically staying the same height that it was. And noticing, are the two sides different? As you go back and forth, are you able to create more stability? Like my left hip has been dropping. If I hold here and I really think about it, I can get it to stabilize. And I can notice, oh, it's my right butt cheek that wasn't quite firing enough. When you're complete, please come on down, knees to belly, a little rocking side to side. And again, being deeply aware as you're doing this, where are you getting massage on the mat? Would it feel good to kind of enhance the range of where you're experiencing the floor against your body, bringing your knees further away from your belly and then tighter and so on. I'm going to bring us into reclined pigeon today, but if you'd like to be doing classic pigeon, go for it. Otherwise, right ankle onto the left thigh, both feet flexed, bring the whole deal towards you and clasping that right knee. Remember, you can keep that left foot on the floor if this is awkward on your back or anything else. Otherwise, active feet, hug that right knee, breathe,
and rotate a little left. And gosh, for me, after doing all those butt exercises with you guys and then gardening a bunch, I don't have to go very far to feel the massage and the chance to release some crispiness in my tissue. Remember, it often helps to pulse or to move in and out of things. And releasing and exploring the other side. Drawing the left ankle across the right thigh, and then feet flexed, and the whole deal into the chest. Wow, it's super windy today. You guys might even be able to hear some of the things kind of banging around in the wind chimes. It's so powerful to notice how powerful wind is, even though we don't see it. We just see its effects, and the breath is like that. Again, noticing, is this side different? And when you feel complete, releasing on out. We're going to come into a reclined spinal twist. I'm going to come onto my side. You can start in a full embryo if you're someone especially who, you're quite tight. Tuck something under your head and then begin opening and closing. I'm keeping my head off the floor again so it doesn't mess up my headphones, but you ideally would have your head on the floor or on a cushion and so on. And at some point, opening up behind with that top arm and exploring your range of motion, not just to make the shape, but more to investigate, to get intimate with, again, the places that you're tight, crispy. This helps us move with awareness in our yoga, but also life, right? And maybe, again, get that TheraBand out or do a little massage with some tiger balm. When you are ready, please come to your other side. And there's more active ways and slower ways to move in and out of poses. And your job is to notice on any given day what's working for you. Yoga should always feel, even when we're gonna kind of work hard, if you will, it should always feel like this very easy, accessible thing, no matter how challenging the postures that we're choosing to do, because we know that there's nothing that we need to do. So in each moment, we just get to go, what about this? So what if I slide my arm up and down, sweeping? What if I circle across the body? And I forgot to offer this on the other side, but what if I rotate my hand all the way down towards the floor one way? And then what if I rotate firmly the other way and hold? What do I get to discover? What tight places do I get to touch? And then as you're ready, come on back to center. All right, we're going to do one last thing here. One of my core yoga values, our robot pose, because it really does get the core to wake up, and we need that to be in integrity and everything else. So bringing our legs into that double 90 bend at the hips and at the knees, and we want to maintain that 90-degree knee bend. We'll only move through the hips. If you'd like to have arms up in their neutral starting position, it's straight up, shoulder heads activated. Power down into the back and just see if you can hold neutral here while breathing without tightening the neck, the eyebrows, just the tip of the tongue connected. Maybe adding a soft smile. And remember, you can just move the legs if that allows you to focus better and to keep your back rooted. Big inhale, exhale, root, and taking one heel towards the floor. If you're adding the arm, it's the opposite arm reaching behind. Exhale, come on back. Big inhale, exhale, extend. Make sure you've got time to really check your alignment and come on back. So continue in this way for a few rounds. I usually like to take a little break if I'm feeling any kind of gripping in my back muscles or my neck. And otherwise, the key is also just noticing your preference. I like to inhale and hold in the extension or in flight, and then exhale, return. But you could inhale just in our neutral starting position, and then exhale into the extension and coming back all in one exhale, right? So this is whatever works for your body today. and really noticing, observing your habits, observing what's hard and then is good work and what's too much. If you're trying to do too much, you won't get as much out of it. All right, we are going to come onto our hands and knees. So as you're ready, spinal rock or however you like to get there. We're going to come into our table pose, and remember, you can always do fists, etc. So every posture you're going to have to notice, please, what is your best version today and not necessarily what I'm doing. Intelligent hand position. Inhale, drawing the heart forward, tailbone back. Big belly breath. Exhale, belly to spine, emptying, emptying. And what does it feel like when you let your head kind of hang? Is that a deep stretch? No big deal. Inhaling, breath initiates motion, cow pose. Reaching from heart to tailbone. Exhaling, tuck the tailbone. And I love feeling the spreading of my shoulder blades here away from one another. It's such a tight area of the body for most of us. Inhaling, cow. And on this next cat pose, invitation to hold with me and begin to go side to side. And again, this should be very organic and based on what you're hearing from your body. Where are those tight spots? Does it feel good to lean into them? Sometimes I end up pressing my hips back towards my right heel, for example, and then going to the left and pressing my left hips towards my left heel. And you can even do kind of a combination of side to side and cow-cat. So over the next, half a dozen breaths or so, I'm going to ask you to please explore your spine and all the tension patterns around it. If we know that judgment and perfectionism and fear and all kinds of other things take up much wanted space, we also know that one of the best ways to create space is inquiry, curiosity. So asking, noticing, wondering. And I'm noticing that my wrists would really appreciate being rolled out a little bit before I go to downward facing dog. I'm also going to really check shoulder heads anchored and that my core is taking me up more than I am pushing with my arms. As you're ready, pressing up and back through those hips. What is downward facing dog like for you today? Oh, what are you feeling? And would it feel good to pedal those feet? It almost always does for me, kind of straightening through one leg and the other. Would it feel good and different to take the feet out wide and press a little kind of side to side even as you're pressing back? So I'm bending one knee and straightening the other. And that's inviting a nice undulation through the upper body. I'm going to add to it, but kind of looking under one armpit. You can groan, by the way. Yoga, I don't think, was meant to be particularly quiet, even though we think of it as a peaceful practice. And I'm going to come on down into child's pose. So bringing the knees down, perhaps the big toes together, knees a little wide, so you've got room for the belly. So hopefully that pushing motion with the arms actually felt like a really good release of tension. That's often my experience with downward facing dog. Even though it is work for the muscles, I often find that it also releases any of the kind of achy tightness that I might have from too much doing or what have you. Or just good doing, right? It's fun to get out there and do stuff. What is it like to breathe here? And for this moment, can you return your attention essentially to a 3-part breath? Is your breath already moving into the low belly, then the center, and then the chest? Can you feel it now in the back body, which has room to expand more that we're not laying on it? Ideally, as we're moving through daily life, we should be breathing into our back bodies. We want enough flexibility in the tissues there to let the ribs move and expand. And as you're ready to come up, please tuck the tailbone and come on into hands and knees again. And again, if this is just too much, you can almost always just edit it out and do something you love or go into a standing version. So I want to find that nice core support, shoulder heads anchored down, what I call stable table. So that I'm in table, but I'm not kind of hanging on the joints. In fact, I feel so stable I don't really need my limbs much. Let's check. Just lift right hand and left knee just an inch hovering off the floor. And I should feel good work happening at the center body, but no other compensation. And return those limbs. And lifting left hand and right knee. So it's interesting to notice as we go from this holding position to now returning again to table, all four limbs bearing our weight, how there's kind of a quiet calm that happens in the body when there's neutral and even. So again, right hand and left knee lifts. As soon as I do that, the body is having to work hard to counterbalance, right? And in this case, it's a really good thing because we're developing our core muscles and breathing into it. Go ahead and switch. But when we're standing, for example, if we're hunching forward, we're now asking our body to hold us out of neutral over time in a really stressful way. And so a lot of our aches and pains come from that. Let's see now if we can take this into limb extension. Inhaling, extend right arm and left leg for opposite walls and see if you stay neutral. In other words, do you drop your chest? Exhaling at some point, come on back. So I hold for about a full breath in each side so that I can be curious, I can inquire and notice. And other side, left arm, right leg. Did my chest drop? Am I shrugging? Does this side feel as easy or the same? And come on back. Great, let's do this one more time. And we're going to pause, right hand, left leg, and take those limbs just a little out from center. And feel how that adds an extra layer of challenge to compensate for that weight. Good. And last, other side. It's interesting to notice two reactions, like I said, in the tongue, the eyebrows, or if you frown. And that tells us a lot about how we handle stress or change or something that might feel hard. So go ahead and come on out and let's actually love up those wrists. We would love to develop a practice of being able to breathe slow, deep, and wide, even into change, even into stress, and that's ultimately our resiliency. Whew, that was intense. I've been doing a lot of weed pulling, so I'm really feeling a lot in my hands. I'll remind you, arnica gel, by the way, feels really great too. It's just taking things down a notch. We're going to come into some standing work. So we've been doing a lot of warrior flow the last couple weeks, and we're going to do just a little today, but hopefully with an enhanced awareness that one of the great gifts of the warrior flow, the Virabhadrasana, the spiritual warrior, is that it is a chance again to notice this balance of energy of being rooted and strong, but hopefully open-hearted, being able to speak our truth. And it's really interesting to notice instead how sometimes people get into positions of striving and tension, right? This is not what a peaceful warrior looks like. We want to be able to get the right things to do the right amount of work and then let the other parts kind of relax. So just keep checking your own body to scan it, and we'll hold each pose for a few breaths so you've got time. I'm going to be taking us in from our standing crane and from mountain at the front of the mat. If you would like to be doing more flow, you could be coming from downward dog, right leg flying. We're going to come into standing crane by kind of pushing the earth away, really activating that low body and belly, getting soft in the neck, and lifting the left knee. I want those nice yoga toes peeling back and finding alertness in all the parts of the body that we need to. And as I exhale, I'm reaching back with the ball of the foot, inquiring, where is the floor? Ah, there it is. Steering those hip bones, right hip bone back, left hip bone forward. And where do my arms need to be today? Would it feel good to have them down? Was I enjoying that outward reach of that very first stance that we were in? Would up feel good? Do I want to go quite into a deep back bend? Let's hold for about 2 more breaths. Checking in with the areas that might be able to soften and give in.
One more long inhalation, and then exhaling, transitioning to Warrior Two, Virabhadrasana 2. Remember, in this pose, the thighs are rotating away from each other. So take all the time you need to pulse, touch, to find your stance, to feel strong. And maybe you're adding platter hands. We often think of this right hand as the offering hand, if there are any gifts that you would offer up for a loved one or for a community or even to yourself. Breath, allowing us to kind of bob, rise, and settle. And on your next inhale, reaching up through that right arm. And again, you can keep the knee bent or straighten it. But even though we're holding in this position, it's not static. I want the inhale to be filling me, maybe bringing me a little more forward, and then exhaling, I might feel that I can reach back along the ceiling a little more. One more. Inhaling up and exhaling forward to our good old-fashioned lateral stretch. I love this pose. Anchoring down through the shoulders, and its most basic form, reaching forward through that top arm and making sure that the shoulders are stacked, because that's how I'm going to get this wonderful stretch through my left side of my body. If you want to take it into more complex forms, deeper if you will, you can bring the hands on down, you can take that back arm down in a partial bind, lots of stuff, right? But otherwise, please hold, find your place, 2 more breaths. And on an exhale, coming on down, plant those hands, pause if you can. And again, you can always do kind of standing versions of this if reaching the floor doesn't work for you. Walk your right foot a little further out towards the edge of the mat. Remember, you can also do a knee down version, and that might feel great today. We want to be able to make a twist, but coming from our core. So I'm going to inhale, I'm going to exhale and draw into my back body like a cat back in order to bring that left ankle across to the right thigh. So again, whether you're knee down or in that full lunge, pause and set your vision on that ball and big toe of your front foot. That's your foundation. So notice if you're losing it, if it's the weight is peeling to the outer foot, you're losing contact, and that means these muscles aren't working the way we need them to. Also, make sure that back leg is super active. And if you're able to connect prayer hands, the forearms will make one straight line. You'll see it when I do it on the other side if you can't hear, but that's the ideal. Otherwise, we might even still have one hand on the floor, just the right hand on the thigh, and rotating. Couple more breaths if you can. I know this is a long hold, and again, make it easier if you need to kind of come off the legs a little bit and just make it more about the belly. As you're ready, release and step back, downward dog. And you might just be holding dog or moving into child's pose or resting pose, or this is a beautiful time to come into a little flow of dog series. Inhaling to plank and dropping those knees for that first plank of the day or week or month. Exhaling chaturanga, elbows in by the ribs. Anchoring through pelvis and thighs. Inhale, draw that heart forward. No wings, no shrugs. Still anchoring through the butt. Press back, downward dog. That keeps our spine nice and safe and happy. And find a sighing breath here. Drishti gaze between the feet. And we'll be starting the other side. If you're in dog and doing it from there, just raise your left leg. Otherwise, the rest of us will find our little organic way to our mountain at the front. So maybe it's legs walking back, or hands walking back to legs, or maybe it's jumping or lunging forward, right? I hate to articulate each time how to do it because your body might be really asking for something specific if you listen. Please find your athletic stance. Really push into the earth. Lifting that right knee, yoga toes. Curious other parts that are tight that can soften. Are there parts that need to engage? And a slow journey, reaching back, connecting. There's the earth. Right hip bone forward, left hip bone back. Your preferred arm position. Feel free to explore. And maybe it's movement, right? Maybe it's yoga mudra. Couple more breaths here. Spiritual warrior, Virabhadrasana. I'm grounded, I'm rooted. I can move into the world with also a gentleness and open-heartedness and boundaries. Warrior two. Plant that back foot. Check that those thighs are rotating open, shoulders kind of stacked. And remember, we're generally looking out over that front hand, but we never want to be like cranking the head. So if your neck gets tight by cranking your head around, don't do it. Just let the eyes kind of gaze forward. The power is coming from that back leg, and the energy is then moving forward from there. But we again don't want our spine forward. This becomes very hard for the body to sustain. This should feel like good, easeful work. Rising and settling on the breath. Inhaling, reaching up and back, bent or straight leg. You might explore them both. Again, making lots of room on the inhale. Exhaling, deepening that side body stretch. Inhaling on up and exhaling forward for our lateral stretch. And again, I like to sometimes use my own hand to stack my shoulder. I'm sometimes using this lower forearm to encourage this knee to stay rotated out instead of angling in. So it's just kind of fun to notice how you can check out your own alignment with your touch and then awareness. Is this side different? Are there any little adjustments that would make it pretty delicious? And as you're ready, on an exhale, flowing out, planting the hands, walking that left foot to the left. And again, you might come to the knee or stay in the full lunge. Inhaling, exhaling, that deep rounding of your cat back to place that elbow. And if that's too much, then here is wonderful, right? So we don't have to go to a certain place. And in fact, we always want to notice where we lost breath and then return to the place before. So give it plenty of room for breath and then engage more. And again, if you're on your back foot, very, very important that that back leg is staying active and not bent. Soft tongue, soft gaze, maybe a smile because you're awesome. And release out. Downward facing dog. And would you be joining me in dog series? If so, please notice what was your last experience like. Do you need to make some adjustments? And if not, please find another posture, either active or resting. Inhaling to plank, knees or feet. Check that those hands are deep enough under the shoulders and not forward at all. Exhaling, chaturanga. Get your chest and nose to arrive before your hips, if you can. Inhaling, cobra, or coming onto the feet for upward facing dog. Thighs active. And downward facing dog. And then we're going to come all the way to the belly. If you want to do another plank to chaturanga, feel free. And we're going to just give our body that little front body love up of pre-bow bow. Remember, you can do a standing quadricep stretch instead if you prefer it. Otherwise, I'm going to tighten my glutes down because that protects my low back as I'm reaching for my ankles or strap. Yoga toes, shoulder heads activated down and back. And I'm not just kind of tightening the glutes, I'm deeply activating with the intention to anchor the pubic bone and the hip bones. And for most of us, this can create a pretty good stretch into the quads. And if you'd like
You can just hold, you can also release the glutes and come back in, or you can go into bow pose. Inhaling. Press the ankles into the hands. And you might pulse down a little and back up. Sometimes at a certain point it feels good to hold, and you might feel that deep massage into the abdomen. It's kind of intense. If you've never done it or you haven't done it for a long time, sometimes people say they get a little nauseous. But in the long run, it can actually help us create flow in that area that can be quite stagnant. And release. Either turn your head to the side or press back child's pose and tune in deeply to your breath and any reflections. I find each posture is an opportunity to observe things about our body and our patterns and what they mean. So sometimes those resting poses aren't just resting for the body, but it's a chance for the mind to reflect and make sure we're gathering all the goods from our practice. So I want to invite either on your front body doing jet airplane or doing a standing version. And I wanted to make sure to remember to cover this today because I think so often, again, we're busy, and I've heard from a lot of people that they're doing a bunch of yard work or whatever. I don't want to assume that's everyone's reality, but it is a lot of people right now. And that they're just like exhausted and tired and tight and sore, and that they're not taking time to get to the mat as often as they wish they were. And I want to just remind us that when these muscles have been pulled tight, pulling and working, that actually one of the best things we can do right here standing, we don't have to wait till we're getting to the yoga mat, we're taking a water break or whatever, engage the glutes, much like we were in our beginning pose, but then deeply rotate those shoulder heads down, squeeze those upper arms in towards the ribs. And we can kind of squeeze and unsqueeze, so sort of engaging. I talked in a previous class quite many weeks ago about like imagining that you're squeezing oranges into juice, kind of that engagement of the lats, and it'll get into the upper back here too. Let's do one more. Oh, and again, the TheraBand movements are so good for that. Lovely. Let's give those arms a break upwards, and then I'm going to bring us into Yoga Mudra. And this is another just beautiful opposite shape from how we tend to spend our daily life. So notice how this feels as you intertwine the fingers and press the fist down as you press the fists off the butt. Deep, deep breath. If it feels good to go into a fold, remember that's always an option. I always caution people to move slowly here if you're doing little pulsing movements, because there's a lot of really fine, nerves and stuff all up through here, and it can get kind of aggravated if we do stuff too fast. When you are complete, either coming into your child's pose if you're on your belly, or ragdoll if you are standing with me. Please tune into your breath, sending the massage into the back body in both of these shapes. There's that chance again to massage the back with your breath. And then as you are ready, however you'd like, you can come on out. We're gonna do a little bit of stuff to close seated, but also using the blocks. So go ahead and gather anything that you might want for meditation. Meditation, by the way, I think we've all now read this so much, I'm assuming we all know it, but I feel like I have to remind myself, because meditation seems so simple, and in the moment doesn't make amazing things happen, usually in that one moment. So I feel like I need to remind myself and all of us in the community that it is one of the most powerful ways that we can become more resilient, that we can transform from a space that's filled and clogged to one that is more spacious and has more room for what we want there. And one of the greatest objections I hear from people about meditating is that they feel that they're bad at it. Oh, my mind's just busy, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yes, that makes you human. And the great thing is you're actually still getting the benefit from the meditating.
And so the great news for us also is that science has been able to show this. They can see your body chemistry change, your brain waves, the whole deal. So if you can let go of your kind of judgment around good meditation, bad meditation, and just decide meditation, good. And so if you are looking for a way to significantly shift your quality of being and quality of life, your resiliency, meditation would be a great way to go. We're gonna do just a couple more body love ups. So grab your block, and if you prefer doing your recline under the bra strap with like a folded up towel or blanket, you'll wanna grab that too. We're gonna actually start with that position. So either the block or the rolled up something or other. And again, it's really important that you feel comfortable enough that you can relax into it, because otherwise we've just created one more scenario in which, you know, your body is like, not safe, not safe. We really want I like to say we are seeking the So check in and see if that's your state of affairs, and if not, make some changes. If your head's still too far off the floor, you could, you know, grab your shawl or a pair of socks or something and tuck it under your head. So first, I just would like to notice, what is breath like in this shape? This shape is opening that front breath space, right, of my lungs and ribs and my abdomen. What's it like to breathe into that? Does it feel yummy, peaceful? Is it kind of intense? Is there a tight stretch for you anywhere? Is it unusual for you to feel breath moving in these parts of the body? You know, again, if someone's a kind of more shallow chest breather, feeling breath stretch into the abdomen will feel unusual. And then I'm going to invite the movement of the arms. So taking the right arm straight up and then overhead. And I've got my thumb turned down towards the floor, but not forcing my hand to touch the floor. I'm actually trying to reach the wall behind. And then I'm going to pulse that arm towards my ear and away. Remember, you can move your head along too and get some nice organic movement. Breathing here, and sometimes I'll even kind of engage, like I might even kind of pull down with my arm and stretch up again. These kinds of pulsing movements often will help release areas that have just kind of gotten stuck in hold. And when you feel complete with that side, explore the other. Is this side different? Still breathing slow, deep and wide into the abdomen, into the chest, letting it rise and roll. And again, on this side, you might try that same kind of contraction and releasing. So I'm kind of using my left arm like I'm trying to pull something down from over my head and then reach back up again. And release. When you're ready to release out of the support of the block, etc., you're going to roll a little to one side. Try to never lift the head directly up. And then invitation to grab your block, or again, I know some people actually prefer something softer under their butt, or sacral triangle for the block support here. Again, this should be easeful. We're seeking the so if some part of your body is kind of clenching and holding, you want to respect that and see what you can adjust. This also will stretch and open that abdomen and the chest and so on in a different way. This will get more into the hip flexors and psoas than the other position does. I like to kind of tuck my shoulder heads underneath so that I'm not feeling neck pressure. And while we're here, we can just assess what it's like to be in this shape. I find it very relaxing because everything about this shape says I'm not preparing to do or accomplish anything. And we need that. We need those places. And I think often the only place that people have is if they're, you know, watching a television show or a movie or something that says I'm off duty. And
And it would be powerful to very intentionally use our body to send that message deep to the nervous system of being whole and well and off duty, non-doer, and so on. That's part of, I think, resiliency, is that we can't stay in the doer mode. We just can't. We might believe that we can, and what we find is it actually makes us unresilient, crispy, at risk of illness or injury, or losing our temper, or whatever it might be. When you feel complete, please find your seated shape. If you would like to join me in a seated meditation, otherwise find whatever you need to be comfortable in your shavasana. And it's interesting because yoga traditionally was designed as preparation for meditation. So we've done this beautifully, right? Gotten all those sticky spots out and really tuned into our systems. So you might find that if you've been trying to meditate, and just plunk down for 5 minutes in the morning, which by the way is great, that's often what I do. But if you've been trying to do that and finding it kind of dissatisfying, you might try meditating at the end of your yoga practice, or at the end of a big physical thing. Maybe you went and took a big hike, and just see if you find a different kind of quiet in yourself. And I find it fascinating to notice how much my meditations vary. I meditate every day, and they vary a lot in length and just how they feel. It's really, really interesting. But again, I know that they are doing really powerful and important work for me, these meditations. So excited to have you join me here at the mat. And I'm going to be sharing, again, a piece of music to support us, and just listen inward to your own breath and let the music kind of wash over you. Inviting your body to settle. You might even tell yourself, I am here. For these few minutes, just being. Just me, with my heart, my body, the blessing of this moment. Beginning to notice the breath rising and settling. Is the texture of your breath different than you entered your mat space today? I'm going to invite you now to scan your body. You can take your attention from head to feet, or however you'd like to do it. But it's just really an inquiry, an inventory. What's there? What are you noticing? What is your body telling you? So as you move your attention slowly along and through the body, being in that state of curiosity and inquiry, and you might find that there is a particular place that you need to pause and give more attention. Notice if your mind wanders and bring it back to your body scan, bringing the scan to a close over the next couple of breaths. Does your body have a lot to say at this time, a lot of information for you? Perhaps you'd like to do another scan as you're drifting off to sleep tonight.
rising and settling. Notice if the mind has wandered and return to breath, rising, settling. I know it's difficult sometimes for people to take the time to just be and breathe, whether it's in Shavasana or a seated meditation or just sitting, on their deck or in the woods or whatever, listening to the rain. So this is where I think it's so powerful and important to, use our knowledge, our intelligence to say like, no, I know that this actually has a healing effect. It's worth the time, the investment, and that it will actually nourish everything else I do, that it'll make everything more beautiful, me more present moment for it. It's kind of fantastic that actually doing a little less can make us do everything else better. So thank you for joining me here today, and I look forward to being here at the mat with you again very, very soon. And always reach out if I can support you in your practice. For now, if you'd care to join me in Ohms, please do. Gathering that first long inhale. Om Shanti Shanti. Om Peace Peace. Namaste.